July 16th, 2003, and I'm at the Atlanta History Center in Atlanta, Georgia, speaking with Louis Conn, C-O-N-N. Mr. Conn served in the U.S. Army in Europe for 2.5 years during World War II, and Mr. Conn is going to be telling us his story today for the record. Would you please give me your name and tell me where you were born?
That's Louis S. Conn. I was born in Atlanta, Georgia.
And when were you born?
1922, on January the 28th.
Mr. Conn, tell me a little bit about your upbringing in Atlanta and your family and just your experiences growing up prior to going into the military.
Well, I was born in Atlanta, Georgia, and I stayed in Atlanta, Georgia approximately until I was 9 years old. At that time, we had a depression back in the 30s. So my daddy owned a drugstore on the corner of Chestnut Street and Fair Street in southwest Atlanta, Georgia, around Morehouse College. He took ill, as far as my mother was concerned, because he died when I was, I think, 5 years old. Then my granddaddy took over the business as a drugstore on the corner around Morehouse College. But during the Depression, we lost our business, my granddaddy, because when he put his money in the bank, you didn't have at that time security for your money. You didn't have insurance. So when he heard that the Depression and the banks was going to collapse, it was about, my mother told me about 10 o'clock that night, my granddaddy went down to the bank, stood in line till the bank opened the next day, trying to go so he could withdraw what little money was in the bank. But when he got to the bank, when he got to him, no money. So therefore, he tried to run the business for several years. He wasn't in a position to borrow any money. Therefore, we had at that time in the Depression what you call a soup kitchen in the city of Atlanta at the Municipal Auditorium. That's downtown, now known as Georgia State University, old Municipal Auditorium. Now we have the Civic Center. But that's where they used to fix the soup, and they would deliver it to the people in need twice a day, in the morning and approximately in the evening. So I never forget my granddaddy, after several months trying to make it. We had nothing but soup, wasn't no food stamp or anything of that magnitude. He said, well, I was born in the country. That's in Grantville, Georgia, Cayuga County. He said, I can do better than that because I can hunt rabbits. I can kill squirrels. I can grow vegetables because I came off the farm. So they decided that's the best thing maybe for my granddaddy and my mother, because my daddy was dead, that they would do, because we had no business. All we had to eat was soup, which they delivered twice a day. So they asked me, do you want to go to the country? Well, I've been used to going to the country because every summer when you're out of school, I would go to the country with my other kin people, my daddy's brothers and sisters, because I love watermelons and cantaloupe and grapes, and so I just go in the patch and bust one and just eat the heart of it and throw the rest of it away. When I was in Atlanta, you had to eat the whole slice they gave you, don't you got to whoop it. Then in the country also, you had no facilities like running water, just had wells. So I would go down and spend approximately 3 months out of the year, which was summertime. So they had no facilities for you to take a bath after you out in there, applying or whatever you do, picking cotton, whatever you're doing. So only time that they said you're going to take a bath would be Saturday evening or Saturday night, because you had to go to church Sunday. But in Atlanta, when I was there, I had to take a bath every night. But for some reason, I didn't like to take a bath. Sometimes I thought I was clean. But still, before I got into bed, if I didn't take a bath, I got a whooping. So they said, why do you want to go to country? I said, because I don't have to bathe but once a week. They said, well, go ahead. You can go home with your granddaddy. So that's what transformed me from the city to the country.
Did you have brothers and sisters?
I have one sister, and my sister went along with us. So I still have my sister, she's living now.
Tell me a little bit about your schooling, where you went to school and how long you were in school.
In Atlanta, I finished the 8th grade. Then when we got to the country, and that was in Grantville, Georgia, in between really Moreland and Grantville, Georgia. Back in those days, it was segregated. So we had what you call a one-room school, which that teacher would teach. Maybe she had students from 1 to the 8th grade. So you put in those categories. So at this hour, she would teach maybe the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th, whatever it was. But one instructor. Before I finished the elementary grades, they finally got another instructor. Then they went from 1 to 4, then from 4 to 8. That was my first part of the school, but I finished in the 6th grade in Atlanta. So when I got to the country, I went to the 8th grade in Moreland. Then in time that we moved, and let me go back and tell you the first house that we moved into. It was a log cabinet because we had no money. But my granddad, by being born in Grantville, Cayuga County, he knew of a white man named Mr. Todd. It was a huge family in Moreland and St. Charles. So he knew my granddaddy very well, knew all the Arms family, which he was Arms. They took that name after their master, because their people, my great-grandmother, great-granddaddy, they were slaves. So they took the name Arms, see, from that. Because in the cemetery, if you go to Grantville now, you see in the predominant white section, you see Arms. Then if you see in the black section, you see Arms.
So your grandparents' names were Arnold?
A-R-N-O-L-D.
You know their first names?
Yes, Augusta Arnold, and my stepmother, she was named Charlotte Arnold. Now, my grandmother, which is my mother, her name was Lula Arnold, but she died. I don't remember her, and my mother used to tell me about her and everything. So we're descendants. My people are descendants of the Cherokee Indians. Yeah. And we have relatives all the way up through, if you go trace them, you trace them right up to Chattahoochee River, all the way to Dalton, all the way to Cherokee County, because that's how Cherokee County was named after the Cherokee Indians. So right through, see, you come on down Chattahoochee River, not too far from, come right through Noonan and come right on down. So the Indians, naturally, they migrated, they had to stay around water, because that was their source what? Of water and for cooking. So that most of my people, when I trace, they'll come from North Georgia on down through the Cherokee Indian, which they ended up in Oklahoma. Because as the United States started progressing, then they said, and pushed them on back to find out what? This is your reservation. So with my aunts, I knew most of them, and my uncles, that's my granddaddy's side of the family, that he had one sister which migrated. And I can remember him, once we was in Grantville, and he was there 3 or 4 years, he got enough money in order to try to go find his other sisters, because all the rest of them just migrated and stayed right around Cayuga County and Grantville, because they came off the plantation. Well, for some reason, she found the tribe, and she got with the tribe. And last he told me he heard of her, they were somewhere in Oklahoma. So I remember he going and spending almost a week. I remember catching the bus and say he going out there and trying to find her. But he came back and said he couldn't find her.
Couldn't find her?
Couldn't find her. Because she got lost with the tribe. Don't know where, she died all the way out there, what. But I remember him telling me all about that. Okay?
Did you, eventually go into high school and college?
Yes, when I finished elementary school, then we had moved what we call Mayweather County. That's around Luthersville, Greensville. So once I finished the elementary school, which they called it junior high, in order for me to get a high school education by being in a segregated society, the school buses which they had wouldn't pick us up. So the nearest school to me, high school, was in Grantwood, Georgia, which was 5 miles. So for 4 years, I walked 5 miles to school and 5 miles back. I would leave in the wintertime. The chickens would be on the roof. When I got back, they had gone back to roost. The only time I saw the chickens was on Saturdays and Sundays, while I was trying to go to school. Because my granddaddy said, if you want an education, boy, you got to walk and get it. Because I have no means to give you any money for you to live in, because you got to help me on the farm, because we don't have no other income. So the days that he didn't want to use me for plowing and picking cotton, cutting wood, so forth and so on, I took my little bag, which was nothing but a string with 2 or 3 books on it, threw it across my shoulder. My grandmother fixed me some biscuits with some strickling bacon, cooked me an egg, and had those old overalls. They had the zippers. You see, I'm not fashionable, but that's all I had. So that was my lunch. I would eat before I leave. Then she'd give me 2 or 3 biscuits, and I'd put them up here in my zipper. That's for me to have, maybe eat one at lunchtime. And I always kept one, but I would hide it before I got to school, because we had no lunchroom. Very small school. We only had about 6 rooms in the school. So I would hide it, so when I got ready to come back home, I would have some more nourishment, and I would eat the other biscuits after I got away from the other students, because if you didn't hide it, they would steal it and they'd eat it. Because some of the students didn't have anything. So that was my lunch. And so I did that for 4 years.
Did you make that trip by yourself every day, or did you?
I had one old young man. He was named Rosser, Marvin Rosser. Now he stayed out in what we call Lono, Georgia. But when we got to a fork, he would go right and I would go left. And he had approximately 2 more miles to walk, and I had approximately 3 miles. So we would always leave school together. But when we got ready to come to school, we would try to time ourselves by listening to the trains. When the whistle would blow, we would have no watch, but we just zeroed in and said, well, we believe it's about 7:45 or 7:30. We could almost tell the time by listening to the train whistle. So he would leave when he heard the whistle. I would leave and we sometimes would meet up going to school. But we would always come back. Now, when we would eat our little lunch, we would eat it at the creek, because we had no water in the school. They used to go down to the well, the people that lived in the little town, and bring the water up in a bucket with a dipper, because we didn't have any running water. So we had our water when we got to what we call Yellow Jacket Creek. Then we would have a little cane, fishing cane, and we knew how, because my granddaddy, by being Indian, he had taught me how to survive. So he would tell me, anytime you want in the water, boy, get that cane, stick it in your pocket. Therefore, you got a hole, then just get down there and just and drink you some water. Now, if I do it, I'll probably die before I get out the bank with the pollution. But in those days, see, that was clear, clean water. And that's why we got our water, and we made it on home.
And did you go to college eventually?
Yeah, when I finished high school, and by the way, I was the only boy. I think I have it here. You may want to cut that off. Yes. I was the only boy, you can see this, that finished school in that class. You see, they spelled it differently. See, it said Louis, S-L-O-U-I-S, but it should have been Louis, L-E-W-I-S.
Oh, yes.
I was the only boy was in the class.
And this is Grantville Training High School.
That's right. So they thought I was really bad because it was training, so they figured I had been to prison. They had let me go to school so they could train me better to not be bad. And that's how they got the name training. And that's what a lot of people thought about you having a training school, that you had been incarcerated. Mm-hmm. And from that, once I finished Grantford Training School, then my principal, we tried to play a little basketball. He knew I could run because I used to outrun rabbits and catch them when my dog would jump them, and we had hardly no money to buy shells to shoot the rabbit with. So we just get out there and I'd take my rabbit dogs, and I had 3 of them. And once we jump a rabbit, once they run him, he come back across the clear field, whatever, I run him and catch him. And therefore he knew I could run. So he just said to you, my granddad said, boy, you want to go to school or you do want to stay on the farm? I said, I'm not going to plow no mule all my life. I'm not going to milk cows every morning and feed hogs. I said, I'm tired of it. He said, well, you on your own. You know, if you go to school, you work. I said, well, I'm working here. You're working for me from sun up to sundown. Made no difference with me. So my principal thought highly of me. And he came and he went to Fort Valley. And Fort Valley said, well, we'll look at him, bring him down here. Therefore, we'll probably put him on a work scholarship. So now you may have to work the whole year round. In the summertime, I said, no problem with me. I don't want to go back and pick no cotton and plow no mule.
And what year was this?
That was in 1943, I think, okay. 43. So once we got to Fort Valley, my principal came by. His name was Mr. James Lewis. He's passed now. He's originally from McDonald, Georgia. And once he took me to school, and I left with 1 suitcase, I had 2 pair of shoes. One was a brogan pair of shoes, and one was what you call a dressy shoe. I had 2 pair of pants. I had 1 shirt. I don't remember having a tie because we weren't able to buy a tie. You just went to church and you just went casual and went clean. But it all got in 1 little suitcase. Didn't know anything about toothbrushes, toothpaste, deodorant. So I had no need for that because I didn't know anything about it. So once we got to Fort Valley, then they went to the dean office. He said, well, you can work after you go to school and maybe clean up the buildings if you like to as a janitorial mission. Or maybe you like to work in the dining room. At that time, they served the students in Fort Valley. That means you had a dining room. The cooks cooked the food. You had tables. So they would ring a bell for breakfast, for lunch, and dinner. So they had to have waiters that brought the food to the tables. Then you had to have assistants with the cook to help cook the food. Because in Fort Valley, by being an agricultural school, they had cows, which we got the milk. We had all type of animals, hogs, they killed them, that's the meat. They had the farm, we got a lot of vegetables, so it's almost self-supporting. And that's why we had the dining room. So I said, well, I don't have no money. I believe I will have something to eat. I said, I work in the dining room. They said, now, you know, you got to get up an hour or 2 before the rest of the students. I said, I've been getting up before sunup for all my life. No problem with me. So I chose to work in the dining room, which I had to get up by 6 o'clock in order to go help the cook. And that was my job. And I worked there until the Army got me.
When did they,
Excuse me.
when did you go into the Army?
1900, I think, and 43. I think that's on my discharge there.
And were you a volunteer, or did you get drafted? Or?
No, I can remember very clearly when they were talking about the war, and I remember we was all in what we call Jean's Hall. That's the men dorm on Fort Valley. It's toned down now. They have built, it was a brick dormitory. I'm sorry, it's a frame dormitory. So I can remember that Sunday we were all just talking and going on. I can remember we heard the news that they had bombed Pearl Harbor. So nobody paid it any attention. Therefore, they kept talking and talking and so forth and so on. And eventually, they said, we're going to go and draft. We got to draft more bodies because we're going to enter into World War II. So all of a sudden, we were put up to be drafted. So they came from Warner Roberts in order to test everybody. So everybody who played, I played basketball. I was a point guard. I ran track, 440-yard relay. I ran 400-yard dash. I also ran the 100-yard dash. So that's my participation because I could run forever because I've been walking forever. So I never got tired. So they had me in all those events. So naturally, all the athletes, they more or less said, well, you all just pack up now because we know you're in good shape. But a lot of athletes didn't make it for some reason. But naturally, they drafted me right off the Fort Valley State College campus out of Warner Roberts.
When you heard Pearl Harbor was bombed and all your friends heard, looking back, did you realize how significant that was?
We paid it no attention because of that status. We knew by being a segregated army what part, if they wanted us, would we play. And we had heard about before then that, boy, that's when they did draft some of the Negroes, as they called us then. Now they call us black, Afro-American. Don't make me know what it is. But we knew they drafted them to be service-orientated. I mean, cooks, and bringing up the ammunition or working on the trucks or whatever it is, but they didn't draft you at that time to really participate in a fighting unit for some unusual reason. So we said, well, maybe they don't need us or they won't draft us because they have plenty of other people maybe they can draft of Afro-American, Negroes, whatever you want to call it, that they can get enough. But all of a sudden, I think from the president, since they did have the Tuskegee Airmen, they started that unit. And some other reason they said, well, why can't we go predominant in the South? Because that's where you have most of the predominant black colleges. So they figured maybe if we go to the campus and get those young men, maybe they got a little higher standard of education, we can let maybe them to participate in maybe more or less rather than the service units and participate in the fight units, in which they did. And that's how we got there, that particular part, and that's how they drafted us to participate, and which I have the document, which we was called Eleanor Roosevelt Niggers. That's how I got to that.
Before I get into your military service, let me ask you a question. You were in the country and you were in the city different times. What was the difference back then in race relations in the city versus the country? The way people got along?
I always start off in my class, which I'm still instructing. I teach real estate at Atlanta Tech College and also the Empire Board of Realtors. So when I have a class, I always introduce myself as being a city slick and a country chic. Because I said I had both backgrounds. And I came back and forth. But to get back, and when I did come back, which my mother was still in Atlanta because she was a maid, first one thing and another, then I would catch what you call a milk truck. Used to come down the road and pick up milk with people who had dairies and bring it to Atlanta. So my granddaddy knew the people that drove the milk truck. So when it was good weather and he didn't have anything for me to do, they would let me ride in the back of the milk truck along with the milk cans, because they would come right back by where my mother worked. So they would drop me off, and I would stay there with her 3 or 4 hours. And when they picked me back up, that's how I got back to Grantville on the milk truck. So on the summertime, then my aunt sometime would let me come and spend a week or 2 with her, and I would come some weekends, and they would come down. Maybe they would pick me up. I would come and maybe go to the picture show, they called it then, and things. That's how I kept in touch, in tune with the city life and also the country life.
Did you see any difference in the way the races got along in the city versus the way they got along in the country back in then?
It was always, you know, people lived separately, but it wasn't as segregated really in the country as it was in the city, because people stayed on what you call plantations. They stayed on what you call farm units. That means you had a person maybe had 300 or 400 acres, and that was the boss, so to speak. So he had maybe the tenant farmers that he utilized, could be 15 or 20 little row tenant houses. And that's how you had to work for your boss. Therefore what? You stayed on this plantation. So I got accustomed to that. Of course, my granddaddy was very independent. That's how he came and he said, nope, I die and go to hell before I work on a plantation. And that's why he knew the people. And that person said, well, I got one log cabinet. He called my granddaddy Gus, said, if you'd like to stay in it. He said, well, I have nowhere else to stay. He said, you let me say you can stay there free. Said, if you ever start to making and growing cotton, say, if you want to pay me, you can pay me a half a bale, or you can give me a bale of cotton. That's how they paid for the rent. No money, they paid by cotton and how you service. So that's the first house I stayed in. And they kept it and moved it to Grantville. It's just deteriorated now, but they moved it down there. It's historical. The old log cabin which we stayed in when we first moved to Grantville, Coyote County.
And that's still there?
I don't, it may still be in a little town. I know they moved it downtown because it's very historic and it built, Indians built it.
Tell me about your induction into the Army, you know, where you went and what it was like being with the other guys that went in and your training.
Well, when we first was drafted, they came over on trucks, I remember buses, and they took us to Warner Robins, and that just took us through all the first one thing and another. And then from there, they sent us to Fort Benning, Georgia. And from Fort Benning, once we got there, they put you in different groups or whatever it was, and they gave you a certain test. I guess to test, you know, your IQ, your ability. Then they had something that they thought maybe if we got a certain group, we would try them in a certain portion of the Army, armed forces. So after they tested our IQ, and I can remember them saying, well, we're going to try you all and maybe try to train you to be tanksmen. That means in a tank outfit. And therefore, you see on my discharge, I was the 784th Tank Battalion, although we had 761st and 758. But this was the first time the United States Army had ever tried any black or Negroes to be in a fighting unit. So from Fort Benning, after they put us in the group, then we went to Fort Knox. And that was a training ground, which is still Fort Knox, I think, for armed forces and the armory. That's where we got our basic training, there in Fort Knox. But in those days, no black person could be a lieutenant. All of my officers was white. In the armies where it was segregated. The highest your ranking could be was Master Sergeant. But see, the Master Sergeant had certain obligations and duties, but had no control. Because all the people who was in control of the various outfits, they was white. Then from Fort Knox, after we got our training, then we moved to Fort Claiborne. That's in Louisiana. And from Louisiana, we went to Fort Hood, which I think is still down around our president area now, Fort Hood, Texas, because it's huge. And that's where we got our last training, was in Fort Hood. Now, doing all of this on the on the what I want to call it, on the outfit whether in the Fort Knox, where all of those was segregated.
Like the barracks?
The barracks, everything was segregated, although you was in the U.S. Army. And I can remember very vividly when we got to Fort Hood, which destroyed my mind. I can never forget it. Because at that time, see, we had been fighting the Germans, so they had captured a lot of Germans you know, had captured a lot of Germans, what you call them,
POWs.
POWs. And they had brought them back to the United States. And they was all over the United States in all the various camps because they had them working. And I can remember in Fort Hood that we couldn't even go to a movie picture, barrack or whatever it was. We had to go to our segregated movie theater. But the Germans, POW, could go with the white soldiers and participate with them, and here we was going to fight them and train to fight them, but here they was here had more privilege than I did.
How did that make you feel?
It tore us up. Yeah. And we had a lot of young men they put in prison because a lot of them walked off and said, you just have to give me. Because you tell me that I'm looking at these POWs and we're going over to fight them, yet still you won't give me. And a lot of them walked off. Some of them, I remember some got 10 and 20 years. Because when you did that, what? They prosecuted you. So that was you had to be very strong in order to be fighting for your country, and you see in this situation. Then from Fort Hood, we went all the way to New York when we got ready to be sent overseas. And I do have I have a little picture here, I think, where we was in New York. I forgot the camp, but here's the last picture that was taken before in New York. I've forgotten what camp that was in New York, but that was just a group, some of the groups in my company. That was some of the young men. That was taken in New York on the Hudson River, whatever camp they called it. I forgot what they called it then. But that was our last camp before they were going to send us overseas. That's the last stage. And
Tell us where you are on this picture so we can get it on the record here.
right here. I'm 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so I'm in the middle of the 5 standing up.
Okay.
See me there?
Yeah.
All right, that's me. That's me.
Okay, right there.
Right, there I am.
When you were at, say, Fort Knox and Louisville and in Fort Hood in Texas, did you get into town much?
Yes, they would always give us a weekend pass and give us maybe a week off. We did 30, 60 days, but naturally you went to town, and in the South, when you was going to town, because very little places you could go. You had to find where the blacks, or we call it colored section of town, and they had no movies or anything to participate in. That's what really got next to us, because on the camp, they did have those type of services, but when you got to the little towns, more or less in the color section, as we call it, they had no theater, they had no nice entertainment, things of that magnitude. So here we was getting ready to fight and training, but you was on the camp, you got no benefits. You got off to go to town, but you had no benefits, so here you were sort of locked in. Which way to go? What must you do? So you had to be really strong.
Did that cause you to become really close to the other guys in your unit?
Really did. And so that's why we had to stick together as a group. One for one, and all for all. Because even our white lieutenants and captains, our commanders, they were very nasty. Told us. Naturally, we wanted to be court-martialed. It was their word against our word. So it wasn't no use to crying out or speaking out, because here you got what? In worse of trouble. And trying to defend yourself. That's why we had a lot of young men that really was put in prison. Because they just said, I'm going all the way. Either you're going to put me in prison because I'm not going to take this.
Was your experience in New York any different than it was in Fort Hood or in Louisville? I mean,
Well,
were you able to get out and were you treated a little bit differently when you got off base, or about the same?
Well, when we went to New York, we didn't stay long because they had our orders to ship us on overseas. So we was only there 2 or 3 weeks before we got the call, to be ship. I remember catching the train, even catching the train to ride. I forgot the name of the camp there, and it was on the Hudson River, to come back down to the port of New York.
What, Fort Dix, was it?
I think that's what it was, Fort Dix. Fort Dix. So even riding the train, we rode in separate cars, which the car train, I remember, had 20, 25 Pullman cars, where to take us down to catch the boats of the ship, which we came across the ocean, the Atlantic Ocean, on the Queen Mary, because they had revamped it and made it what? For bringing soldiers overseas. But that's what we was on, the Queen Mary. I'd never been on it again, never want to see it again. Because even on the Queen Mary, you were segregated, going overseas to fight. That means we were down on the lower decks. And you know about what happened. Sick as a dog. Because that's the roughest part, of your ship. And I never been on a ship. Because being in the country, I don't know about no water or anything. So my daughter's 9, granddaughter, come on, Daddy, let's go on a cruise. I said, sure enough, bring the cruise to me. And I don't get on no more water. They said, I said, I don't care about you paying for it. It doesn't make me any difference. I don't want to see it. Because I can remember when we hit that ship and when they pulled us out, it took us 3 weeks to go across the Atlantic Ocean to England. Because it's zigzag to dodge the U-boats. So one night you may be in 90-degree weather. The next night it may be 0. Because it was zigzagging to dodge the U-boats, which they got wind of it. So it was 3 weeks. And so I remember the second day I got sick, and I stayed sick until they took me off the boat. They had to take me off the boat on stretchers, most of us that was on the lower deck, because we had lost half of our weight, because you couldn't keep anything on your stomach. They had a little pill they would give you. That pill, I forgot what they called it, but you eat anything, you were gurgitated. Water, anything, you couldn't hold anything on your stomach.
What was your feeling? Were you excited or scared or a little bit of both? Or what was your feeling going over knowing what was coming?
Well, at that time, I had no dilemma. You couldn't even think rationally, because you said you stayed. If you didn't go, what's going to happen to you? You're going to be put in prison and all what you have encountered. So you just had to say, well, I just do the best I can and hope things would change. And this is what attitude we tried to do, and just try to survive. And that's what we got in England, and we had another rare experience.
What was that?
And therefore, when they took us off the boat, then they took us all the way down to what you call Wales. A lot of people don't know about Wales. That's part of what? Great Britain. That's why they made that movie, How Green Is My Valley, because that's coal mountain district. So that's where they took us away from, like, the metropolis cities, so to speak. I guess they didn't want to encounter. England was a little fairer, certain degree, than America when it came to maybe, but they still had segregated pockets, even in England. So that's where we ended up, and we thought things would be better when we got to Wales. But I never encountered when they took us off the trucks and things, and had us lining up and told us where we were going to stay, and therefore some of the people in the towns had given certain things like barracks and things for us to live in, put on cots and things. I can remember the second day they told us we could go to the pubs. That's what they call them over there, the beer pubs, and get you some what they call chip and fish. That's what they call it. And so we went into a little town. I forgot the name of the little town, but it was in Pontypridd, South Wales. I can remember several little teenagers, boys and girls, coming up and introduce themselves, and glad you Americans, whatever, and they put out their hands to shake our hands. So we extended our hands, And the minute we extended our hands, they ran to the back of us. And we was literally encouraged about it. They said, what? And I said, remember, why are you running to the back? They said, well, you all from Africa, and therefore, if you shake your hand, your tail will come out behind. And it blew our minds. And we didn't believe it. And we told our commander, our common commander, that we didn't feel free of going into towns anymore. And we rebelled quite vigorously. Here we had come all the way from America. Here they had almost been defeated, bombed almost out of emission. And here we coming to fight them, and here we are being treated as this over here. We said, and they had talked to us very strongly in order to try to get us to cool down, because the whole outfit, we just really wasn't going to take it anymore, because we knew we was heading to go fight the Germans, because we knew it was going to either be D-Day or right after D-Day, because they were amassing a lot of, because when we was coming up, we came over on a convoy, maybe 400 or 500 ships.
And about when did you land? Or when were you in Wales? Around?
It had to be, it had to be maybe about in 44, because I know we had over a year training, over a year training, and I know it had to be in 44.
Did you know when you went over there that you eventually were going to be invading Europe, invading France?
Oh yes, they had mentioned it. They wouldn't give you all the orders, but we figured we were going to be in the invasion, because as you would see all the ships, and you could see all the tanks, and you could see all the equipment, and then certainly when we got to England, especially down in South Wales, you could see all the ammunition, you could see the storage area, you could see all of, and what made us really know we was going to probably, you had the tanks, had the blowers, they had not blowing out now, they had invented where when you hit the water, see, the exhaust would come up. So we know we're probably going to be in the landing, or we're going to probably hit the water till we do what? Hit the dirt. So we knew that at that particular time by just looking at the equipment and everything.
Talk about your training while you were in Wales or in England, your training for the invasion.
Yes, they would take us out, and they would have us and meet, and they would give us the maps, and they would give us and name the various types of beaches which probably maybe we would land on, or be backup if they didn't use it for the primary landing. So we were very familiar with the coast of France, and that's the training we got. We had trained, you know, what part we would play, which I was in the tank outfit, in which we had what we call the small light tanks. We were what you call the striking force. We would draw fire from those 8.8s, the big Tiger tanks.
What kind of tanks were you in?
The light tank. Light tank, but we had in our outfit all what you call then medium tanks. That was what you call now the heavy tanks. Those are two type of tanks that you had. In the light tank, you had two Cadillac motors on them. So if you mash down on it, it would rear up with so much speed. It was built for speed, built for penetration. Seek out the enemy. Shoot at you, hope you get back. Don't get killed, come back and let us know where is the enemy. Then we'll send the big boys up and let them attack. And you pull back, spread out again, draw fire, come back. That was our motto, that's in our outfit. But my outfit, my company, 784, we was in light tanks.
And what was your unit?
784 Tank Battalion. 784 Tank Battalion.
The 3rd Army?
That's the 3rd Army, under General Patton. He wasn't the commander when we left America, but naturally for the invasion, you know, they appointed him to be part of the invasion with General Bradley. Now, I remember shaking General Patton's hand at least 3 times.
Tell us about that.
All right. So once we did get by the breakout, which we landed approximately 10 days after D-Day.
Let's go back a little bit
Okay.
before the breakout.
Okay.
What was your job? How big was the crew on your light tank? And
Now,
what was your job?
it comprised of 4 men. You had what you call the driver, assistant driver, and the gunnery, and also a commander. The gunner, which had a 37 millimeter gun. That was the gunner. Down on the right side of the driver, you had also, that you get knocked out, you could drive, the assistant driver could drive on the right side. But he had more or less a machine gun that he used. The driver did nothing but drove. Also, at the top, you had a 50 caliber machine gun, along with the 37 millimeter. That was equipment on the tank.
And what were you?
My job was part commander. That means I was the next in command, and 5 tanks made up a platoon. So behind the lieutenant, I was next in command if anything happened to the lieutenant for that 5-tank outfit. I always was the driver, more or less, for my commander. Then he would switch me around sometime in case they looked and saw he was a different color, because he had to be in the turret, that they would kill him first. So by maybe he would get killed, I was still driving, then they maybe would blow up the whole tank. So on some days he would shift me around and I would be in the middle of the platoon as a tank commander assisting him, and vice versa, or don't I would bring up the rear in case anything would happen to him. And his name was Lieutenant Strong. I never will forget him. He was from Germany, but he was Lieutenant Strong. But he was a U.S. citizen, but he was born in Essen, Germany. See? That's right out of Cologne, Germany.
Was he any different than some of the other
Oh,
countries?
yes.
Did he treat you with respect?
Oh, yes. He was altogether different. Because his idea, they started it, don't take no prisoners. He was tough. And in tank outfit, we couldn't take prisoners.
When you were when you first heard they were getting ready to go, getting ready to go the next day, what was your feeling? You knew you were going to be getting on that aircraft?
Yeah, the feeling was, well, we're here, we have to do the job. Hope things will be better, we may survive, or whatever it was, because where are you going? What you going to do? You just had to swallow hard and keep rolling. And not just nothing for you to do, because if you think anything different, you ain't going to get anywhere with it anyway.
Did you feel like you learned a lot in England just about people or about
Yes,
the world?
when we was in England, you had some patches, they were very nice to us, but you still had the same feeling you were back in America almost. And you didn't know which way to go and what to do, because they would give us weekends sometimes, because we stayed in England, I forgot how many weeks, and they would give us pass, and I remember catching the train, and we would go to London. I remember seeing the London Tower, and first one thing and another, we would go and ride the little subway they had there, enjoy it, and come on back to South Wales, Pontypridd. So I can remember they gave us a little time off, and we'd go in, they would let us dance, and young ladies come up and dance with a lot of black Negroes at that time. They really, when they came back through, they married a lot of those Englishmen. And some of them came back and went back and got them and brought them on home after the war. Yeah, some of them married. Some of them wanted to come to America, so that's the only way they figured they could get here. Let me marry you. Because a lot of them had a lot of men. So the men in Charlotte was very, very rare. You know, you had a lot of young ladies, but you didn't have no men. I was a married man when I got there. And I got so many proposals. I said, I'm sorry, I'm married.
Oh, so you got married before you went?
Oh, yes. I married before I left the campus.
What was your wife's first name?
Owita. She's from Vienna, Georgia. And therefore, I married and had one daughter. And by her, I have 2 sets of children. And now, of course, my daughter now, she's a retired teacher from Canton, Ohio.
Okay, you're on the ship now, going over to
On the English Channel.
on the English Channel.
Rough.
Let's talk about that and talk about going over and landing and just tell us your story.
Well, when they put us on the ship, we knew We was going to either be in the land or we were going to hit the beach maybe a few days after land. Because a lot of ships on that English Channel, as far as you could see, as wide as you could see, was nothing but ships. Ships. Ships, all type of ships. So when we started across the English Channel, it was so rough, because if you read history, you remember that delayed the invasion. Because the weather at that particular time was rough. I said, here we go again. So one day, before we even started across the English Channel, as we got on the ship, most of my outfit, we were sick again. Because the ship started rocking. And therefore, we said we too sick in order to fight. But yet still, when they got ready for us to pull out, they pulled on out anyway. I think that may have been a little deterrent, and maybe why we lost a lot of men, because that English Channel was really rough. It means sometimes the ship would dip and it would be covered half with water. So when we hit the beach, most of our men was really not able to get off the ship. And we lost a lot of men getting off the ship because they didn't have the energy and they just fell in the water, and they're not going to pick you up. You're just there. But when we did get an outfit there and organize ourselves, then I forgotten what beach we hit on, but they had broken out of the beach head. So we ended up around St. Lo, up in the beach head where the Germans had pulled back. But I can remember seeing all those beach and seeing the big guns that the Germans had put up in the turrets and things like that. We can remember seeing that, but they had cleared the beaches. You had to be worried about mines and things, so we had pulled us to the right with the Third Army. So we fought all the way through the various towns. I can't name them all. I had a map. I could point them out to you, but all through there toward Paris. So we wiped out the Germans. I forgot how many weeks, whatever it is. So had another outfit was coming, so they said we're going to liberate Paris. But when we almost was in Paris, my outfit, they got and sent a message saying we're going to now divert you back to the left, toward the Siegfried lines, going toward Belgium. We thought we were going to get a chance to help liberate Paris and march down the Champs-Élysées, as they did do. Again, a lot of the men in our outfit left, and we don't know where they are. So what happened to them? They said, the H was this. Because we knew they diverted us because they didn't want us to march as a black unit, Negro unit, in tanks down the Champs-Élysées? No. Parading? And we knew it. And that's what got us there again. So we were diverted, going toward the Seine River, coming back toward the Siegfried line, coming on back toward Belgium and Luxembourg.
When you hit the beach, what did you see on the beach, and what was your feeling?
When I hit the beach, you could see body parts everywhere. They did the best they could. You'd see out tanks and just matter. And again, you said, boom, you split in two, turrets over here, gone land here, over here, just things destroyed. You could just imagine, you just said, what is all this about? They just got a path big enough for you to bring your tanks and get off the beach and move on down wherever you need to go. But you still had debris everywhere, body parts everywhere. You just had to overlook it and keep rolling. And that's what we encountered there till we got to our outfit. They gave us a message to move on. Now, what was so intriguing about when I saw the picture, Saving Private Ryan, that was the Eagle outfit. I've forgotten what they called them, but you know they wore the patch, the infantryman.
101st.
I've forgotten, it wasn't the airborne, but it was an outfit infantryman. I've forgotten what they called themselves. But the Eagle, if you ever look at Saving Private Ryan, you see the infantryman we was a supporting group for that outfit that you saw on TV. But then you didn't see any of me. And I want to talk to Steelberg so bad and tell him, why don't you get the whole story? Don't get part of it. The places that he had was showing in this movie, fought all through it. I remember those infantry, they would jump, boom, in our tank when the Germans let loose all those screaming memes and all them 8-8s. Hey, boom, boom. It wasn't no segregated then. They looking for protection. And so they get up under the tank, in the tank, hey. Some of them from Mississippi, some of them from Alabama, some from, they say, hey, bullets don't know nobody. And that's what happened. But that's the outfit that we supported. Once we came back to the left in order to pick them up, that was our supporting unit.
When did you first make contact with the enemy after you got on the beach?
No, we didn't make it time we hit the beach. It was, I guess, about the second day we made contact going to the right with the enemy, which people don't realize we being in tanks. We be on road, not in the bushes or anything of that magnitude. You be like a highway. So our outfit was to penetrate as fast and as quick as we could in order to overcome any enemies that we encountered and push them to the side and let the infantry come up behind and capture. If we met the tanks, then we fought with the tanks, but it was somewhere in part of France that we first encountered. But our biggest encounter in my outfit is when we really got in Germany. And once we got past the Siegfried line, in which I met General Patton, I know 2 or 3 times, because by being in the light tanks, we was always used as what? Penetrate, draw fire. And he would always say, hope you make it back. Hope you make it back. Good luck to you, because you on a suicide mission. Because they put up little platoon bridges, because they had blown up all the bridges, so the engineer put up a platoon bridge, for us to bring it, take our tanks across the rivers. And I remember going across the rivers, and that's what we would do. And our first really town that we encountered was Aachen, Germany. That's the first town. And we fought there for 3 nights and caught purely H. That's where we lost most. The real big casualty was in Aachen, Germany. And I think if you read the history book, that was the first big town that we captured from the Germans. So I remember the first night we hit Aachen, Germany, as support cast for the 3rd Army and other infantry. I can remember we lost half of our outfit because they surrounded us. And I remember the lieutenant telling us, put people on to look and watch the tanks, but being great big bank, and he said, well, pull back, surround the bank with the tanks. We give each other your break, 2 or 3 hours. Now you commanded, and therefore we got a little rest. So I remember going in that bank. It was cold, and I hope you remember this. That was the coldest winter that Germany had had in 50 years. Because I know when we got in Germany, the temperature was 10 below 0. The wind chill factor sometimes was 25 and 30. And during the time, that's when you had the overcast. That's when you had the Battle of the Bulge, because they couldn't get supplies. And men just froze to death. All that snow and ice. And things of that magnitude. So I can remember going in that bank in Germany, money wasn't anything, and that's how we kept warm. We burned money. We got it out the vault. And that's how we kept warm, because you had no other things, like had no paper, so that we burned money. And I said, well, I had a good time, burning money. Got something out of it. And remember, and I told you, which I brought a lot of money back. I had a lot of coins and things which you allow you to bring so much. But I told you my grandmother, and she displayed them, God bless her. But I had all that, you see. But Aachen, Germany was the first little big town that we helped to capture.
You said you were in the Battle of the Bulge?
Battle of the Bulge.
Tell us about what went on right before then, and then What happened?
As we penetrated, we was pushing to go all the way to the Rhine River. That was our main objective, to the Rhine River, Third Army. But in soon going to the Rhine River, they sent an outfit to the left, which is through Luxembourg and through Belgium, through Holland, which you see on my discharge. And we was some of the penetrators with our light tanks that encountered down in that area. I remember the big windmills, you know, and everything, the tulips, and the people in Holland. And they was a little nicer too, because they had been defeated. They didn't care baby who would come to liberate it and everything of that magnitude. But I remember then we shift back to the right, because they got word that the Germans was thinking on what? A breakthrough. So as we encountered, we penetrated, and I don't know the name of the towns. I had a map, I could point them out to you. We were the farthest penetrated outfit, along with the 784, 761st, and tank outfit, along supporting the infantry, than any outfit in Germany when the Germans broke through. Therefore, we was out on a flank light, 20, 25 miles into Germany, and very few knew we was there. But we got a command that don't move. Try to find shelter, which we did find. I forgot the name of the little town, had a lot of factories. So that's where we could go, and that's where we hid our tanks, because it snowed, and therefore the Germans could really pick us up if we left them out in the snow. The tank, they could wipe us out, and plus the infantry could really pick us up. So that's where we took the little towns and tried to cover our tanks and the best we could in order for covered camouflage. Well, we stayed there, and they couldn't get any food to us or anything. We tried to rationalize our ammunition the best we could, but our food more or less was the big jackrabbits and deer. That's where we would go out, and late in the evening, early in the morning, so nobody could pick us up. And we would go out when we saw the jackrabbits and the deer, we would go out and kill them. And that was more or less our meat. In the snow, we would melt it for water. Because in the factory, they had what you call pressed coal. I don't know where you ever encountered. Germans didn't have what we got coal here in America, you know, like sheetrock, you know, raw coal. The Germans took that coal, they pressed it. So the oil, I guess, chemicals they got from it, they utilized it. But yet until the other portion, they burned it. So that we had a lot of pressed coal, didn't make any smoke, so you couldn't tell whether you had a fire or not. So we could have a fire, and that's how we cooked our meat in order to survive, and that's how we melted the snow for our water. So we stayed there approximate, I know, 2 or 3 weeks before they got aid, and that's when we broke out. And then when we broke out, that's when we pushed all the way then through Cologne.
Tell me a little bit about your feeling when the Germans started attacking.
Okay. Well, again, you just had to.
What happened? What you saw?
Yeah, we saw the big Tiger tank. We were very familiar with it. We were very familiar with the Stuka German, the dive bomber, and that being a part assistant as a commander, I had to know all the German planes, like flashcards, you know, had to flash them. And that's for when you look up, you had to determine was it an American plane or was it a German plane. And where you had to get to cover up, you know, so maybe you wouldn't get destroyed. So I knew practically all I could almost tell by the run of the motors where I knew that was a Stuka dive bomber, whatever it was. I knew our planes, especially. I loved our P-38s. That's the twin engine plane. I could tell them anywhere I was in. I say, we got help. I say, I'm coming. And that was a fascinating plane to me, the P-38. And most people don't know about the P-38. Some people may know. Then you had the P-39. That was a heavy plane. And that was one would knock out the Tiger tank. Well, these are the things that we had in order to encounter the Germans. But once we got and penetrated so far into Germany, then the Germans knew we was there. Therefore, they started a counterattack in order to encounter us. But at second day, that's when the weather broke. When the weather broke, then they broke through the infantry did. Then they could had the paratroopers.
By they, you mean?
The U.S. Army.
Okay.
They had the paratroopers, then they could what? Let them drop, and they did come and set up as like a breachhead in order to encounter, because they knew we was in a pocket, and that's what saved us.
How close did the Germans get to your unit when they started the attack?
They at least got some penetrated right into our unit. We had to wipe them out, and they wiped a lot of us out in order to push them back. See, I fought all through the Black Forest, Ardeen Forest. See, we fought all through those forests. Very beautiful, but very deadly. I know you've heard about them, and probably you learned history, but they're very deadly because they fought very, very tough. They had what they call pill boxes, you know. Get down, you come along, they let you drive right over the pill box, and they would take a grenade and blow the bottom of your tank out, kill everybody in the tank. So you didn't know, and they would die along with it, because that was the last ditch stand on that, fighting all through the forests and everything. But we fought all the way to the Rhine River. And I remember the Russian was pushing up, they told us, on the other side. So we had one bridge, and I remember our outfit, along with other outfits, we ran as far as we could go, as fast as we could go, because that's the bridge they said we can capture it, then we can easily get across the Rhine River with our outfits. But now when we got to the Rhine River, we captured the bridge, sent the infantry and everybody across, pushed the Germans on back. But again, my outfit wasn't allowed to cross the Rhine River.
Do you remember the name of that bridge?
I don't know the name of that one bridge that the Germans thought they had booby-trapped it, and they should have blown it up, but for some reason it didn't detonate. And there was the only one standing across that Rhine River. I could almost see. I remember, of course, on the Rhine River you had a lot of castles, because that's where the elites, you know, back in the, go read German history, you know, you had the kings and the queens, and that's where that was their state. I remember staying in them. I had a good time.
You stayed in some of the castles, huh?
If I never owned one, I sure stayed in some of them. I remember we would all, you know, when they give us a break, we go in, you know, we just have a good time. And we, you know, being soldiers, we destroyed a lot of things we shouldn't have destroyed. But we just go in and see how the people live back in medieval time. And by me being in school, you know, I had studied, because I was a social studies major, and I had studied a lot of history, so I got a chance to see it, really. And it was fascinating to me. But on that Rhine River, see, that's all along that Rhine River. It's castle. Now, I guess they use it for a tourist guide, I imagine, nowadays, because people come there and that's what they use it for. But I got a chance to stay in the spring.
So those were your barracks for a while, huh?
That's where I was barracks for a while. That's where we pushed off there after they went on, and that's where they met the Russians, and therefore we stayed right there and offered a support group. If they had lost a lot of people at that time that we'd have been able to cross maybe the Rhine, they would have called us up, you know, to support.
Americans had lost a lot of people.
That's right. They probably called us up to support. And let me give you another idea about when we was in fighting and they gave us a break when we was in France. And that's really when I enjoyed and thought not even fighting. Therefore, they gave us a 3-week furlough, as they called it, before they started another penetration on into Germany. So they pulled us back because we had lost a lot of men to regroup, as they called it. So they let us go to Paris, France. And along with Paris, France, they let us ride the train, going all the way down to the Riviera. I said, look at me. And look at what I'm encountering. I guess that's to build our ego, because once they was trying to regroup, they knew that now it was going to be a lot of massive killing, and therefore they were trying to get that last stage, and we knew it. So they said, enjoy yourself. So we stayed down on the Riviera in Paris approximately 3 weeks. So I got a chance to go down there, and we had maids that served us and everything. They were very nice. I remember going out on the beach when I see the movie stars on there. I said, I've been there, whatever it is. So they gave us that trip, and down there. We was on the east bank of Paris, and we went a lot to shores and things. So I really enjoyed it, and I tell some of the students now, I tell people that, see, they think you was in America, you had different race. I say in France, it's all kind of races of people, and people. I said they was there. I said because you got to remember that the Germans and the Frenchmen and the English, I said they had a lot of colonies in Africa. So they had a way back. We didn't know about it because you didn't travel as much you travel now, but it was almost in a certain section of what, France and England and Germany, you had just as many what minorities, so to speak, as you had almost in America. In certain areas, because they brought them back for service, first one thing and another. They used them. Am I right? And people didn't realize. I said, yes. I said, I was shocked. Now, along with that, and once we regrouped and came back, then when we first, I remember once we was in Aachen, Germany, and we started going out in the countryside, and most Germans can speak English. That's their second language. They teach it. And when they saw us as being of color, they asked us, what are you all doing over here fighting? And you can't even, what, live peaceful in your own country. They had that much knowledge. Said, why are you all trying to kill us? Said, you ought to be fighting with us to help us free, or whatever it is. But it was very, and they talked, I talked to a lot of them. And once they found out, you know, it was in college and everything, and very educated. Average German, very educated, very industrious. That's mean, you know, it's very scientific and everything. They had the Autobahns, and the Autobahn highway, and we messed up in America trying to copy what they had, calling what? Super highway. Because on the Autobahn, they didn't run any road through what? The cities. Straight shots. So if you had to get off the Autobahn to go to Essen or Cologne or anything, you had to get off and travel 15 or 20 miles on another highway. But on that what? Autobahn, doop, you could run 100, 150. Because sometimes you look down and you couldn't see the end.
Did you take the tanks down the Autobahn?
That's what we found out how to do, just like they were doing, because we would take the tanks down the Autobahn, and you could pull back off them, and then we would camouflage them so the German plane couldn't see them. And that was good camouflage. That's how the Americans found out where are the Germans' tanks, the Tiger tanks. They found out they used the Autobahn. Therefore, at night, rather than being in a certain group, they just pull them off with the Autobahn and pull them back and camouflage them, and it's hard to detect them because they can space them. So if you may get one or two, but you wouldn't get a group. So we started using the same technique when we got into Germany, all through there.
After you got through Germany, where did you go?
Well, we stayed there to the Rhine River, and when they declared the war was over, and that's where we started to penetrate.
Had you been to Holland?
Oh yes, we stayed in Holland about, I guess, a week to 10 days. That's to regroup until they find out. But you remember, you had an outfit that was almost wiped out because it was on, I forgot the name of the bridge in which they were trying to capture, but they didn't capture that bridge. Therefore, the Germans counterattacked and wiped them out. So once they changed their tactics for what we were going to do, once they found out that outfit, so we came out. I remember we only moved at night, so the Germans wouldn't know we was there again, to get as many we could out to regroup again. So I remember in Holland that we stayed there maybe from a couple of weeks in that. Luxembourg, it wasn't Luxembourg City. I tell people that's just one little country you in and you out before you boop boop, you out. And a lot of people don't realize that. I told them, no, it's Luxembourg, and the capital Luxembourg is Luxembourg City. But I remember talking to the people and everything about being social study. I knew it was a little, but I didn't know when I got into it and everything. But I got a chance to go to those countries. And you could tell when we finally penetrated in those countries by being in the winter, it was what? Almost 24 hours of sunlight. Because we were fighting what? In November, December, see in January, what you call that? Those things that you see, you know, look, what you call it? That's it. Right there, I never forget it. I said, what? Am I in heaven? Oh, where am I? because very seldom you would see night, the time we was fighting, because see, it was in the winter time. So I experienced all of that, and the penetration and everything. But the Germans were very fascinating, because most of their houses are developed, they got cellars. So when you see a town destroyed, and you say, well, all these people, you know, a lot of them got killed, but you see them coming out, the debris and everything, it was amazing. Because it looked like they had planned for it, but that's just their style of living. Maybe they've changed the style now, but most of them had cellars that they would go down into, even the bomb, and they survived. A lot of the cows and things were destroyed, because most average German, they always had their, along with their cows and the hogs and the chicken, they just had them right almost in the house. And therefore, that's how they survived, I guess, using each other there.
Tell me about your contacts with Patton. What your impressions were of him?
Yes, well, at that time, I'll never forget about him having the 2 guns and riding in his Jeep. And you could either always distinguish, he had plenty of support, you know, to protect him, but he just a fighting man, no question about that. He wasn't a loser. And whatever my commander, whatever they called for, he delivered to them in order to do it. I guess that's why we were victorious in doing what we're doing, because that was his style of fighting. And he wasn't interested in capturing nobody. As I told you, one of my commanders, Lieutenant Bertstrong, he said, we don't have time to take prisoners, and which we didn't. If the interest wasn't there to capture them, and they got in our way, he said, either you don't kill others, we got to kill them, shoot to kill, and that was war. I tell anybody, war is hell, and that's just a survivorship. Yeah, can't have no pity on anybody, and that was the style. Sometimes I tell people that, I said, that's war. You hear a little on TV, you see a little in the paper, get in it, that's war. To survive. And in the way and method you do, you have to do it. And that was our style, and that was Patton's style, blitzkrieg. He took it after the Germans, you know, penetrate, move. Let the other infantry come over with the little pockets, they'll wipe them out. I want you to take the big town, surround it, just like it did, you know, like we did, I guess, Iraq. See, I guess they got the tactic, you poop, 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 let it come back, we worry about the little pockets, which we catch a little HO that now with the pocket. But that was their idea, what, the main goal, what, get to Iraq.
Did you meet Patton personally?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Because by me being a tank commander and behind my lieutenant, and being in case something happened to him, naturally I was right there with my lieutenant, Lieutenant Bertstrong, when the command was given. Because if anything happened to him, I had to know about what we're going to do and what would happen. So I'd be right there when they discussed when they're going to leave or whatever, time and what was our goal to reach. So I was right there with them. So when we got our orders and everything, then shook all of our hands. So when we were crossing the various little rivers. Now over there, when you speak of a river, and you don't speak it like a Mississippi River here, Chattahoochee, they're very, may not be wide as, a little wider maybe in these 3 or 4 rooms, but you had to get across them. So it didn't take long for the platoon bridge to be put down for you to get your tanks across. And they could easily destroy the bridges because they're very small. But that's the little rivers that you had all the way through Germany. And you had to get those heavy outfits because they want to get on the outfit because you get destroyed.
Where were you when you found out the war was over?
We was on the Rhine River. I forgot the name of the little town when we got the order that war was over.
How'd you feel about that?
Ready to come back home. Long ways back, but as they're doing now, I was talking to somebody the other day, they were talking about when the war declared over, what happened. I said, well, we lost almost half as many men after the war was declared over as we did fighting. Because the sniper was still in those little small pockets, and nearly every night or nearly every day we would be out and around, and somebody would be in a tree. They know they're going to be killed, but they would kill one of us. And therefore, naturally, we would shoot them out the tree, or they were on the ground, we surround them and destroy them. And what was so fascinating, it was the Hitler Youth Corps was doing most of the after-war fighting.
How old were they?
14, 15, and 13. Because, see, all the other age group had been wiped out. You remember, he got the Youth Corps. And therefore, they were still fighting because I guess they didn't really know any better. And saw us as Americans, and they got a chance, they would kill us until things got a little easier or whatever it was. But we lost just as many men after the war as we did during the war. Every night and every day we had to call the roll. We called somebody got killed and see him in a body bag or whatever it was. Just like they're doing that when I was telling somebody about Iraq. I was telling them about Iraq, and it was amazing how they really were saying, well, how do you know all that? I said, well, I fought in it. I can tell you, I know exactly what they're going through. War is no with until you what? Pull out. And when you pull out, hope you're saved. But as long as you're there, although you have defeated your enemy, so to speak, but some gonna get you. And I said, that look like me. So they said, well, I said, yes, it. I said, I can realize what they're going through, really. I can see it, because that's what happens.
And how long were you over there after the war? Before you came back?
It approximately maybe 3 to 6 months before they shipped us on back. And we came back in the port of New York, and that just got us again when we came back. We was in America. And then we got in America, they put us on a train and brought us all the way back to Fort Stewart. What's in Augusta? What's the name of the camp?
Stewart.
Fort Stewart. I think that's where we got and was discharged from. And even after then, we rode on the train. We were segregated on the train. Here we're back in America, in New York, coming back south. You couldn't sit with each other. If you got back Washington, D.C., you even got on the bus, which nobody picked me up in Augusta, none of my people. So they had buses for us, Greyhound buses. So when I got on the bus, I got accustomed maybe sitting anywhere I want to sit, so I never will forget. We got on the bus and we tried to get on, and we were sitting. Time you got on the bus, started sitting in the first seat. I'll never forget the bus driver said, Negroes, he did, said Negroes, start in the back and load to the front. And again, one of our soldiers, I never forget, they locked him up because he hit the bus driver. And they locked him up. So we just said, well, it's best for us to do, play it a little cool if you want to make it on back home.
What was your highest rank in the Army? What?
Staff sergeant.
Staff sergeant. Mm-hmm. And your dates of enlistment were 3/27/43, and you got out January 6, 46?
That's right.
Is that correct?
That's correct. That's correct.
One other question before we finish. When you were in Germany after the war, just briefly, what was your interaction like with the Germans? They just been beaten?
Well, again, they know a lot about America. And a lot of them, most of them, average, could speak English, and they was a little upset with us taking what we have taken in America. And maybe they knew they had done wrong, their leaders had done wrong, but they couldn't even vision us being there to fight for freedom, as so we were fighting for, or to liberate them. It's hard for them to see the whole undertaking. And we had to say, well, we had to fight because we were drafted, and that was just part of our United States culture at that time. It was a little tough and everything. I guess they thought different from us and everything, but they treated us pretty good. You're always going to have that pocket that's going to, but more or less they was very nice to us. Mm-hmm.
We've got about 2 minutes left. How about just in that time, just looking back on it, what your thoughts are of what you did and how it affected the world and how it affected you?
Well, as I see it now, I think as you look back, it certainly affected the world per se, because number one, it wasn't long before I think Americans said, well, why we as America have people to fight and still they can't participate in the whole process of democracy? And I think that really changed the structure of America. And we see it today. We're still working on it, but I think that was really the beginning of seeing that everybody should be treated equally, regardless of what status, what race, or religion, or creed. And from that, I think I maybe played a little part. It hurts me at times, but I overcome it. And I always tell my students, when they get in trouble dealing with real estate, they have a rough day. Go home, drink your little liqueur, and go to bed, and get them the next day, and forget about it. Because ain't nothing you can do about the past.
Is there anything else you'd like to say that you want people in the future to hear about your experience?
Well, the biggest thing I want to say, regardless what obstacles you may encounter, you as an individual have to be the person that says, this is what I will do, and that I will overcome any obstacles in order to reach my goal. And you must set a goal in order to live in life. Without a goal, you're just here. But if you set your goal, you can achieve it and keep working on it, working on it, and working on it, and you will reach the top. That's my deliverance to people that would like to have it.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Conn. This has been wonderful, and we respect what you did, and thank you very much.
Appreciate it very much. All right.